All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to As Told by You. Today we have got Philip Blair on. What I love about this kind of guest is that Philip is a guy I have known of forever and have met a couple times. You know, we talked a couple times, but I don't know him super well. And so this is a cool thing to talk about. Philip is kind of a legend in the bar business in Columbia. He owned the Whig for 17 years.
Yeah, a little over 17.
Yeah, so the Whig is obviously a legendary spot in Columbia, closed now, sadly. But now he runs Weco, and Weco is one of the great kind of beer locations in Columbia. So talk to us a little bit about Weco and how's it going?
It's going well. We just had our 5th anniversary party in December. Trucking right along. You know, we opened Christmas Eve. Right before COVID hit, we had our soft opening.
Nice.
And then a few weeks later, you know, all the bar stools were pushed over in the corner, and we were shut down for 6 or 8 weeks. So it was a very interesting time.
Yeah. It's a weird time to launch a business, right?
It really was. And everybody was like, oh, no, are they going to make it? And
Yeah.
luckily, at the time, it was, pretty low overhead, very small staff. It's like, looking back, it was like borderline pleasant because we were just like, during the day, we would ring people up. Just to go beer. That's all we were doing.
Yep.
And then we would just put together like jigsaw puzzles and walk around the yard out there while nobody was there. So
yeah, we launched our this As Told by brand. We launched in November of 2019. So we got a good 2 months, 2 good solid months, where we were charging at it pretty hard as a starter, and then everything got shut down.
It was like being a big open air drinking area.
Right.
As soon as things started to open back up, we were just
it was perfect
out the gate, kind of, weird coincidence, but super, super busy.
Right.
As were all the restaurants were kind of struggling. It was like we were kind of bursting at the seams.
Just right place, right time.
Yeah, it was just an odd thing. 0 to 100, like unplanned.
Awesome.
So
what got you into doing this? Where did this come from?
Well, I mean, so I'm a lifelong West Columbia resident. I live super close to where the beer garden's at, and just knowing that we needed a place on our side of the river, for lack of a better term, it's a little less redneck to hang out at, was kind of the thing. And I was a huge fan of the Craft and Draft. I found myself driving from West Columbia. I would drive to Divine Street just to find certain beers and hang out with those guys. And I was like, this would be way cooler if I didn't have to drive through the entire campus and through downtown to do this. So there was a couple locations we looked at, and over time it just got more and more real until we pinned the deal. And
so you made a place you wanted to hang out at.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So describe the vibe of Weco. Is it like Craft and Draft where it's got like all the local beers?
To a degree, it's the same principle. It's a bottle shop. You can go in, you buy wine, beer. You can take it to go. It's on and off premise consumption is what the license says. Kind of just a community hangout spot. Ours is a little different because we have a much bigger outdoor space. It is more beer garden, plant landscaping, all that.
Yeah.
We don't have TVs. We don't do music, loud music.
Yeah.
So it's a little different in that aspect.
Like Zen beer drinking.
Pretty much, yeah. Which some people are a huge fan of. Some people are like, what y'all should do. And it's like, trust me, we should do what everyone else does.
But the tables are always full, right? I mean, almost every time I've been there,
we do pretty well. I mean,
Yeah.
It's definitely seasonal, and depending on what's going on, it can be very busy.
Yeah, and Brian's not a beer guy, so but there's always
Not an alcohol guy in general.
Not an alcohol guy
in general. It's not like I'm drinking whiskey and not beer.
But that's the fun part about this kind of concept, right? That you don't have to be that. My wife, we go to Craft and Draft and Irmo a lot because my wife loves the food, and she's not really a beer person. We just go to have the food. It's great, and it's a good little community place. We almost always run into people we know in there. There's always families in there.
Do you guys have food?
No, we have a different food truck that comes every day.
Oh, okay.
We keep a schedule of that online. So.
Yeah, and that's the fun part about that is that there's always, you never know what the food truck's
could be
gonna
waffles, could be wings.
Yeah, could be Mexican.
And after 20 years of being in kitchens, I was like, if we can all avoid getting bogged down in making food, let's do that. Let's focus on other stuff.
That's funny because when Bill and I were talking about you coming on, he had mentioned that at the Whig, you could get kind of all different types of food, and
Yeah.
how he enjoyed that part of it. But he's
Yeah,
like,
and
The
it was
burger
also
at the
really
Whig was
long.
one of my favorite burgers in Columbia.
It was very good.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I do miss. I'm like, oh, I've actually been making some of those recipes recently because they're all in my Google Drive and just like,
Sure.
just to,
So let's go back to when you bought the Whig. I mean, you must have been pretty young to
Yeah,
take
so I mean,
over a
it was
whole
kind
bar.
of a
That's-
weird thing to fall into. When I was 22, might even still been 21, probably 22. I was at Art Bar, and one of the guys there was like, "Hey, you want a job?" Because I was already doing other jobs. Like I've been in the service industry forever, doing like kitchen work, and I was like, "Yeah, great." So I started working the door there, and then within a year, the Whig had opened. And my friends opened it, and I was roommates with the bar manager, and it kind of had a weird opening. I mean, it was definitely busy when it opened, but everybody kind of quickly lost interest in it that owned it or was running it, and they kind of were just like, well, this is more responsibility than I wanted, because everybody was in their earlier mid-20s.
Right.
So by default, within a year or two of me starting to work at the Whig, it was like, well, I'm running the place now.
I might as well own it.
Yeah, so and I talked to the two guys who were still kind of the active owners, and I was like, guys, like I can run this place. I'm happy to take the reins and do whatever, but I'm not going to do it to work for you.
Yeah.
Let's work together. So it was, very amicable. I found myself at 24, 25 years old owning a bar on Main Street and bartending 5-6 nights a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were some of the lessons that you must have learned pretty quickly as a 25-year-old running a bar?
Yeah, I mean, luckily I did learn them, and it's taken a long time to kind of look back and be like, oh, wow, I'm glad I figured that out pretty quick. It's like you find yourself in a position where you're making really good money and you're able to kind of decide what practices to do. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's like if you figure it out, it pays off. And
Yeah.
That's kind of where it was at.
Right. I remember going to the Whig and walking down the stairs, and I don't know if did you ever go?
I have gone to the Whig.
But going down the stairs into that little cubby hole, and you got the little hallway that you got to go down, and there were people outside smoking. So it's like it was like I hate to say things like this about Columbia, but it was like a big city bar experience.
It was. I've
you know what I
seen
mean?
like people are like, that haven't traveled a ton. They're like, oh, it's so unique. I was like, it's not that unique.
Well, certainly
Certainly,
for Columbia,
You went
yeah.
down the stairs when you went to Cheers, so
Yeah, that's right, and it had that kind of vibe, right? Except nobody at Cheers smoked, which I think is fascinating for the '80s. But we can talk about that some other time. So, but one of the first times I went down there, I went down to see Daniel Howe play guitar in the corner, and literally sitting like where the stairs were, just kind of, playing guitar like right next to a table. I mean, it was a really interesting environment.
In the early days, we did a lot of music shows,
Yeah.
like even some like comedy shows.
Yeah.
But as the place got busier and more known, we had to slowly kind of push those out.
Right.
But
You always felt lucky when you got a table.
Yeah.
When you got in and you had three.
I
or four
remember the
people with
last
you,
show we ever did
you know?
very, very well. It was
Yeah.
we did Shovels and Rope.
Oh, wow.
Right as they were kind of like getting big,
Man.
and there was probably 300 people in there.
Wow.
Which, if you know the space,
Yes.
you're like, that's not safe.
That's like having 300 people in here.
and I'll have to
Yeah.
go upstairs.
Yeah, I mean,
Get
people were
out in
standing
case of
on
emergency.
tables, standing in booths, and it's just the little duo playing in the corner, and we were just like, wow, if we get out of this night without going to jail,
Right,
let's
right.
never do a show again.
If
And
everybody makes it out like
Yeah, yeah.
safely, all that stuff. Good gracious.
let's go out on top.
Yeah, that's right. I remember Chris Bickle.
Oh, yeah.
And so I went to go see. I don't know why this made me think of this story, but I went to go see Inhumanity when I was in college. One of my friends from college was the drummer in Inhumanity, so I got to get into the space. But they did a show at the Sumter Street practice space where Stronghold Gym is now, and there were probably 400 kids in there shoved into this old warehouse, focused on this little cubbyhole practice space where they were playing. And I kept thinking, even as a 20-year-old or 21-year-old, I was like, this feels dangerous.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like something's going to go wrong here.
It used to be a little looser in Columbia.
Yeah,
but,
it was like one of those things where you go, it's not quite so much regulation, not quite so much of the, back and forth. So but you opened Weco. Did you open Weco while the Whig was still open, right?
There was some overlap, yeah.
Yeah. So what motivated you to have two places? Because that sounds like a lot.
It is, but I mean, the Whig had been open forever, and we had basically no turnover, so
Right.
we had a really kind of dialed-in crew.
Right.
And I found myself with more and more like just time on my hands. I'm just like sitting at Drip Coffee half the day, twiddling my thumbs, like waiting for something to do.
Right.
That and just the general like I'm at the age and I've got the resources to look to do something else.
Sure.
I'd like to do something where I don't get off work at 4:15 in the morning.
Sure. Well, after a very busy shift until 4:15, So that's,
yeah. So I mean, now if I do a night shift at Weco, it's like, oh, dude, is it 11 o'clock? Why are we still here? So that's much more my speed.
Yeah.
So basically, it's like those beer gardens are basically designed for 50-year-olds.
Yeah. Well, in a way, right?
So I'm not staying up past 11.
Right. You could go at 6 or 7 o'clock and nobody cares, right? If you went to Hemingway's or you went to, I don't know, like some bar at 6 o'clock, it would feel weird. You would feel like you're out of place, right?
Because it's
like the art bar. I mean, I love the art bar, but if you go to the art bar at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, it feels strange. It feels like we shouldn't be here, right? We shouldn't get to the art bar until 9 or 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, But a beer garden like that, or Craft and Draft, or any of these places, it feels like it's super appropriate to be there after work.
Oh yeah, we get plenty of people working.
You know what I mean?
Remote work on the patio with their laptops.
But you think about the story I told you where we went there. We went there for my friend's 40th birthday party and ran into Zach and his friends. Right, 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds hanging out there at the same time as kind of older people. And I think it's a safe place. I say safe, but it's a cool, it's a cool place to go. You don't feel like it's out of place for anybody to be there, which I think is really awesome. I mean, I love the especially beer gardens for me because, I love going to Hazelwood or Savage Craft or whatever, but you're limited to what they, you're limited to what they serve. Where you go to Weco or Craft and Draft, you're going to get whatever's on that board of 14 or how many ever you have.
Yeah, then you've got hundreds of other cans.
Yeah, and then the cans and bottles all
we've
in the
got
thing.
22 taps and probably 300 different cans.
I think what's cool is if you're a fan of beer, then it's a great way to find new stuff or to find stuff that you maybe haven't had in a while or whatever. But even if you're not, it's a great place to sit, and
that's the only thing you can do there.
Well, maybe, but you see
which again, like
you see your friends, you hang out,
it really confuses some people.
You go to the food truck.
Like,
yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, look, if you talk to my college me and you would say that there are places like this that exist in 2025, I'd say, wow, that's the future, because there weren't places like this when I was in college, and so I think it's a very cool thing that you go there and you're almost guaranteed to run into somebody that you know, which is pretty awesome.
In a college sports town, people are very confused why we don't
have TVs. Yeah. You don't play the game, right? Yeah. Because you
have books.
You're not a sports bar,
Yeah, I mean, we have such a big space that you'll look out in the yard and there'll be people playing chess. Like it's got a little bit of kind of a European vibe to it.
Yeah. It's something that has happened in big cities for a long time, but we're really just getting used to the culture here. And I think it's very, very interesting. One of the things I always loved about going to like River Rat is that you would go to River Rat on a Sunday afternoon. Their families out there playing cornhole. It's like there's it's a family environment. It's become an after church place to go have after church lunch. It's not just Lizard's Thicket. You can go to one of these places and have the food trucks there, and you can see your friends and all that kind of stuff. I think it's really awesome. What do you feel like is next? You happy running Weco? You got any dreams of going somewhere else?
I've always got ideas. There's things that I'd like to do, but we have to kind of see where South Carolina goes as far as a business environment. I go out of town a ton, Charlotte, Savannah being the closest cities where there's concepts that exist that aren't here, and I'm like, man, it'd be cool to do that here.
Yeah,
but
there's a great culture around that, especially in Charlotte. There's a trail that we go ride called the Charlotte Greenway, which is
Yeah.
just a paved trail that goes all the way through Charlotte. And there's all kinds of like, beer stops. You can go to Noda or any of those places on the trail. I love the environment. Greenville too has something like that. What is a concept in one of these places that would be good in Columbia, do you think?
Columbia's got holes like
Yeah.
in what we've got. I mean, it's not necessarily like a beer garden or even a craft beer specific thing, but like in our area, like a decent Irish bar would be great.
Yeah.
Like, I know that sounds like very like, oh, duh, but it's like we don't actually have one. Like,
Right.
every other city's got multiple, and we don't really have one.
Right.
There's room for breweries here.
Yeah.
Even though we have a few and we've seen a few close, I mean, they close for a reason. Like, we've never had a really good upstart brewery that locals can rally behind and be like, this
This is our beer.
yeah, most of our breweries are like just rich white dude projects. Like, they're not actual like passion projects. They're just weird investment things, and it's like
Sure.
that's why they come across as sterile.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think cities like Charlotte and Asheville, and I mean, there's a couple of those that have really figured that out, like Green Man, and these things that are happening in Asheville are just, it's so cool to go there because the passion is really, you can really kind of feel it through the product.
Yeah, I mean, you can see like places like Burial, how much they've expanded in the last like 10 years.
Right.
So,
And what's the one in Rock Hill? Legal Remedy, I think is cool.
Legal Remedy, they've got several up there. So
Yeah, so it's interesting that I'd love to see some of that grow here. We had taken on a documentary in a couple of years ago of local breweries, and it got put on the shelf after a month or so of working on it. But it's interesting to talk to like Angry Fish out in Lexington, and like how those guys are just bootstrapping. I mean, they're just like making beer, and it's cool to see that kind of
there's
energy.
a demand for it. Columbia's never had it, so it's still new to us. Like,
Right.
It's been saturated other places, but never here.
Yeah. Well, speaking of challenges in the environment in Columbia, let's talk about the liquor liability laws, and I have seen you being kind of outspoken on this online.
I've gotten a few messages about some of those.
Yeah,
some of those things.
but I think it is maybe it's a difficult conversation. Maybe it's obvious, but I'd love to talk about it.
It's very confusing. I think most people don't understand it or even know that it's still a thing. We get customers, I hear it all the time, like, did they ever sort that thing out?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, they did not.
Well, talk about what it is. So let's start there.
well-
What is the liquor liability problem in South Carolina?
I'll do a brief crash course without getting into like the nerdy like legal speak, because that's where it gets really boring and tedious. 2017, there was a law passed that required anybody serving alcohol after 5 p.m. to carry a $1 million liquor liability insurance policy.
Okay.
Perfectly fine. That is a great idea. That legislation makes sense. It is smart. At the time, the Whig carried, I believe, a $2 million policy, and it was maybe $10,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's an expense, but it's something you should have because you never know what could happen.
Right.
Common sense. Problem is, you fast forward several years, when you compare that requirement with the dram shop laws in South Carolina, which are just antiquated, weird alcohol laws, and then the basically joint and several liability, meaning somebody has a drink at Weco, say they come and have a mimosa at 11 a.m., they go about their day. They do any number of activities. They can go home and take a nap, watch a movie. They go out later that night and get extremely drunk somewhere, or even drunk at their own home, cause an accident. I am 100% responsible.
Wow.
Yeah, that's basically the premise of joint and several
Even if you didn't
liability.
overserve them, you served them at all.
Yes. So if somebody goes to 7 bars, has 1 drink at each of the 6, and then 20 at the last one, they're all 100% responsible.
Wow. And so is that something that's happened recently, or is that the same as the 2017?
It's all just combined. It's all worked together.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
as all these, now that everybody's carrying these big policies, the personal injury folks are seeing dollar signs and they're like, we'll sue everybody all the time,
Right.
which is not specific to alcohol in South Carolina. It's kind of a sue everybody state anyway.
Right.
So that slowly starts driving the rates up.
Yeah.
And then insurers start leaving the market because there's no way for them to make money.
Right.
So there's now only 2 or 3 carriers for this insurance in South Carolina. And that's driven the rates up, I mean, thousands of percent over the last 5-6 years.
Well, and there's those, stories of like Henry's that closed in West Columbia, cited it specifically. Like, we just can't keep up with this.
There's been a lot. I mean, there's been dozens over the last year or two. There's about to be hundreds, and if not more.
Right.
Because it's an exponential increase as you renew your policy every year.
Right.
You're paying 200%, 300% more, and now it's reached a breaking point. And unfortunately, there's no super positive outlook that it's going to change in the next few months with all the legislation going on.
Right.
And the bills being proposed. So it's a slippery thing.
What do you think the goal is with this, or like what's driving it? What's making it be this way?
Refusal to let go of the money by 2 very influential sides in the state house, the insurance lobby and the trial attorneys. All the restaurants and every bar, cigar shop, brewery is in the middle, and they don't have the representation. They don't have the lobbyists or the pool of these groups. So you're kind of only hearing the 2 sides demonizing each other, and there's no real common sense in the middle.
Yeah. Because as soon as you eliminate the bars and restaurants, you don't have anybody to give you the money anymore, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, until the money dries up, which could be quite some time, there's always going to be somebody to go after.
Right.
Just people with deeper and deeper pockets. My hope is that somebody just passes some common sense. Let's get on par with the states around us where this is not a problem. Like, it is a uniquely South Carolina thing.
Right.
That's where everybody's argument looks kind of silly. It's like, you're not right and you're not right because there's a problem. Like,
yeah. Well, and I saw a conversation, I think you were involved in it on Facebook, that it was somebody was saying, somebody was defending the personal injury side of it.
Yeah.
They were saying, like, if someone gets into an accident that's alcohol related, you need to have this here to take care of them. But obviously, I don't know the ramifications of spreading it out between any place that served them. That's scary.
That's where basically the tort. That's where people start talking about tort reform.
Right.
That is breaking up the joint and several liability to where you are liable for your portion of whatever happened.
Yeah,
Which,
you're a piece of it.
Fairness. That
Yeah.
is in any other industry that's not related to alcohol. If it's just a general car accident,
Yeah.
that's how it's done.
Right.
But if it's alcohol related, everyone is 100% responsible.
Wow.
Nobody is arguing that a victim of drunk driving should not be made whole, and
Right.
nobody's saying that.
Right.
But that's the message that the personal injury folks are trying to put out there, that if you pass tort reform, victims are going to lose. And
Yeah. Who's speaking on behalf of the bars and restaurants?
no one really.
Really?
I mean, it's up to the very much grassroots. We're all trying to contact our legislators and senators. I've sat down with a few face to face and kind of gotten their take on it.
Interesting. Because there is a restaurant association.
There is, but they don't really represent bars and restaurants. I mean, they're more
Gotcha.
beholden to like Lizard's Thicket and U.S. Foods. I mean, they don't really have
Yeah.
the same interests. So
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. And we talked to Christian about this a little bit in the fall, and there are people that are going to get through it well, but there are people that are going to really, there are smaller places that are going to really suffer, from
Yeah.
this.
and it's related to food sales, which is another antiquated thing that has nothing to do necessarily with the liability, but it's South Carolina law to have a liquor license. You have to serve food.
Right.
So those places tend to get a little bit of a break on their insurance for no reason.
Right.
I mean, there's no real justification for this. If you go to Savannah or Charlotte, there's dozens of bars that have not a crumb of food that have
Right.
been operating for 50 years.
Right.
It's just something to make somebody feel better in South Carolina.
Like they're trying to almost kind of taking care of it by making sure there's food.
Yeah, and it's something that Harpootlian used to kind of lay waste to 5 Points.
Right.
Which oddly enough, like I don't super disagree with some of the things he did, but
well,
the fallout is you've kind of condemned everyone.
Some bad stuff happened in 5 Points.
Oh, absolutely.
Not because of the bars
Yeah,
necessarily, but I mean, I feel like it.
There's some bad characters. I mean, I'm not by no means saying the bar and restaurants are just the complete victims here too. There's a lot of they should be shut down. I mean,
sure, but it's almost like every time one closes, another one pops up.
Yeah, it's odd. I mean, there's no. That's what they should be focusing on. Like, let's make DUI offensive. Like, there should be more of a penalty for that.
Right.
But there's not, because half the people in the state house represent DUIs. Like,
because there are a lot of lawyers
exactly.
in there. Yeah, that's a challenge. Well, and it's an interesting topic that I see because I know so many people in that business. Several of our kind of close friends are bar and restaurant people, and we hear about it a lot. But I don't know that most people really understand that this is what's going on. And part of like the rising cost of food and restaurants and drinks and everything else is because of this, right?
Yeah, and it's, we're not, I think people kind of associate it with all the other things people are screaming about. Like, this is not like the price of eggs. Like, this is not like, oh man, that costs 30 more cents now.
Right.
When I opened Weco 5 years ago, our insurance policy was $12,000 a year.
Right.
It's $70,000 a year now.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Nothing has happened. There's been no claims. We haven't done anything to change our business model. That's an unsustainable trajectory.
Yeah.
You can't absorb that cost, and you can't raise prices any more than
the market. The market dictates how that is. And the beer's already $7 a drink. I mean, you're not talking about you're not talking about a cheap service anyway, right?
And some people have this weird concept that they're just killing it over there. Look at all the cars in the parking lot; they're rich.
Yeah.
Not to name names, I sat down with one senator in his office, and he was very kind enough to take an entire hour to listen to it. He's a guy from our neighborhood, and he was just like, "Man, that's awful. I hate that." And I was telling him how we're struggling to pay this premium. And at the end, he's just like, "Wow." He's like, "You guys just like back a truck up to take all that money home?" He's like, "You're completely missing. Like, we're not crying out because we're greedy and want more money. It's like we're about to all be gone.
Right.
We need your help."
Yeah. Well, and
because that's only one line item of the entire expense report,
and it's not a functional line item. So it's not like you're spending that on buying something that you're selling.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy part about it is, Brian and I talk about expenses in our company a lot. All of our expenses go to function. It's our employees and the space and all that stuff.
Yeah, you can't show people I could print my liability policy on the wall and light it up and be like, guys.
Just line the wall with it, just like print it over and over again. And have,
you're spending $70,000 a year on it. You might as well make it a focal point of.
That's right.
Our beers might be a little more expensive, but look at this paper.
That's right. Look at what I bought.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll get the community rallied around you to say,
all of this money we were sending right out of South Carolina. So
well, and because it's so close to me, because obviously for a non-mainstream musician, there's two places in town you can play, which is Art Bar and New Brooklyn Tavern. And we watched New Brooklyn Tavern go through this in the fall, where they were having to cancel shows because they had tax issues and liability issues and all this stuff. I mean, it's a real threat to like these institutions.
Yeah, and I think sadly, I think it's going to have to get way worse before people really start taking it seriously, because it's kind of easy to point out, like you'll see like a winery in Aiken closed, citing liquor liability insurance.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yes, I'm sure that was a huge cost, but also a winery in Aiken might not have ever made it anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
But once you start seeing the Art Bar and New Brooklyn Tavern, what they're following, and places like Weco start folding because there's no money to make.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs, especially if you love going out to these places. Now, granted, there are other ways to do it, I guess. But is there an intention of driving out alcohol from alcohol sales from? I mean, is that part of the intention?
I don't. It almost seems like it. I don't think it is.
Yeah.
I think it's just everybody is going to ignore it until it's reached a critical level.
Because I don't think these are places where people are going to get drunk. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. They're going to enjoy like when I go to the Cigar Militia down here, they don't serve beer anymore because of the liquor liability law. And of course, nobody was going to the Cigar Militia and getting drunk. You'd have a beer or two while you're having a cigar, but you're not drinking all day.
Yeah,
And
I think McMaster fairly recently was like, you guys need to solve this because he realizes that South Carolina is non-competitive and
it's not
it's
attractive
hemorrhaging business.
Yeah.
I mean, we do pay taxes on the things that we sell, and if we can't sell them, then there's no money left.
Yeah. He's seeing it hitting his pocketbook. Right?
Yeah,
That's how.
We're drying the actual government's funds up, not just
Yeah.
the personal injury attorneys
or the bars.
And
Right?
it's not obviously not just a Columbia issue too, right? It's a statewide issue.
Oh yeah, I think you've
so-
seen more closings in Greenville and Charleston just because the competition's greater, the rents are higher. So I think it might have affected those places even quicker.
Yeah. Well, that's
Places with actual tourism.
right. Well, we have tourism.
A smidge.
It's funny. We worked with Experience Columbia a couple of years ago, and as we started to look into it, Experience Columbia says that they're bringing people in to events in Columbia, from all over the country, all over the world. That I guess we don't recognize it as being But Brian and I were like, mainly people coming here to visit kids at USC, to visit people at Fort Jackson, state government, and like sports stuff, like, kids sports stuff. And so, but it's, I guess there's enough people coming through that it makes sense. It's certainly not Greenville that has the mountains and Charleston that's got the ocean, but we definitely,
We see people, oddly, I guess, where we're at on Meeting Street. It's kind of like the last little bit of civilization before you get in the no man's land between
right.
West Columbia and the airport.
Yeah.
So people get people with their suitcases like, oh, we're just waiting on a flight. So
So might as well hang out
we'll
here.
just stop here before we go hang out.
Yeah, that's cool. And I was telling Philip, when we ride street meet on Tuesdays, we'll stop at Weco. That'll be one of our stops, because obviously this is it's a beer club that also rides bikes, and so we don't.
What's the liability on that?
Yeah, well, right, exactly. Listen, we're safe.
He's just hit 7 bars.
Yeah, no,
and
we're
riding
being
a
safe.
bike.
We only do 2 bars a night. I typically can't do the second bar. I'm not a 2 bar a night guy, mainly because my wife would string me up if I spent $20 on beer on a Tuesday. But we that's part of the fun of it. Is we just kind of ride 6 or 7 miles to the bar and we have a drink and then we ride 8 or 10 miles back and that's the day.
Do you wear the shoes? The clip-in shoes?
Okay, I don't have the clip-in shoes.
Do some of the people in the
This
group
is
have
off
Yeah,
topic,
so
Philip.
you can hear them. We
Yes.
got a concrete floor. You hear them.
Yeah.
And
So I
always
ride
found
what
that
we
odd.
call flats because I always hated riding with the clipped-in shoes. I always hated being clipped into the bike because I feel like if I get off balance or something goes weird, I can't get out of them quick enough. Like my brain doesn't think to
Twist your
unclip in the
ankle.
right way. So every time I've had that problem, I just fall straight over. And so I started 5 or 6 years ago riding flats to not fall over when that happens. But I think it all works the same. It's more efficient when you are clipped into the pedals, but I'm not that worried about it. I'm riding to a bar. It's not that serious. So
I wonder if the group started based on the fact that the first couple guys couldn't drive to the bar.
No,
they needed to ride the
no,
bike.
they're diehard guys. The
Yeah.
core group, they ride like 20, 30 miles a
now,
day.
this is the crazy thing. In that group of street meet riders, so many of those guys, like, that's their transportation from their house to their work is
One of
on
them
the
lives
bike.
like 3 doors up from me, and
Yeah.
I'm astounded. I'll be getting in my car, backing out of my driveway. It'll be like 20 degrees.
Yeah.
And here comes guy in sandals, just
Yeah.
a
A lot of them ride in sandals.
What?
It's wild.
Okay.
Through West Columbia. That's
And-
bold to go down West Columbia Street.
And they're fast. Look,
Yeah.
I ride the bike once or twice a week. These guys are fast, right? They are fit and they're fast and they several of them show up to the thing with beers already. You know, I mean it's a whole other level beyond what I'm even doing. And I feel like as a suburban dad who is around a bunch of guys who don't ride the bike once or twice a week, I feel like I'm killing it. But these guys are just like serious, you know, and will leave you in the dust in sandals and, you know, blue jeans. There's like a guy that rides in blue jeans and sandals almost every time, and you're like, I just don't even understand this. Like, I don't even understand how that's but he's on the bike every day. And that's anytime. This is like music. Anytime I've asked how I get better, they say, how much do you practice? And I go, not enough. And they go, you know, same thing with bikes. How do you get faster? You ride every day, you know? And so, but that's how that ends up going. I love that group. I mean, it's a lot of fun to ride with because it's not so buttoned up, and it's, you know, you can actually just go out. You know, we always go out at dusk and we have fun, and we stop at a place like Weco or Craft and Draft, or, you know, what's the one over on Rosewood? I was trying to think of the name of it. It used
The
to
Hoot?
The Hoot, yeah.
Yeah. That's my business partner.
Used to be the Kraken.
Owns that place.
Yeah, the Hoot's great. I always love stopping there, and they're similar concept. They've got a bunch on draft that switches around all the time, and, you know. So, well, what's your like favorite beer that y'all stock? Talk to us about beer a little bit.
I like a lot. I mean, my taste kind of changed just depending on the mood and the weather or whatever. Yeah. I mean, I always kind of go for the default German beer on tap. We keep 3 or 4 of the taps German all the time.
Yeah.
After a very, very long hiatus from IPAs, I'm kind of back on the IPA train just because we've had such a steady stream of really, really good ones coming in.
Yeah, and I feel like breweries, they kind of focus on the IPA though. Like, they want to make sure they've got that flagship IPA.
Yeah, I think enough have been weeded out now. The trend has been riding long enough to where it's like the ones that are really doing it are like, okay, that's the one I want.
Yeah, we talk about when my wife and I go to Craft and Draft, she has such a hard time finding a beer that she loves, because she'll find something, and again, it's always $7 or $8 or $9, regardless of whether you love it. And she'll taste it, and she thinks she likes it, and then you get like halfway in, and you're like, I don't really like it as much as I thought I.
It's amazing what a few degrees will change the taste.
Right.
So, I mean,
yeah, as it warms up in the glass. Yeah. I love. So, what's your favorite like local brewery? Cast your crown on.
Ooh, that's tough.
Yeah.
Just the beer, I would say Beer Keller.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree with you.
Yeah.
I would agree with you on that. I
think he's biased towards German beers.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's, in a way, they're like kind of like our competition. So, I mean, I'm just being honest.
Because it is a beer garden.
And they're very close to us. But, I mean, Columbia Craft definitely has, if you're looking at a wide range of styles, they can't, they're in a league all by themselves.
Yeah.
Nobody's competing with them.
I'm a huge fan of Hazelwood.
Me too.
Yeah, and
Brewery Spaces goes. That's like my favorite. I think they're the closest thing we have to an actual local brewery.
Yeah. Well, because they grow their own hops.
Yeah.
And so I got to go out to their hop farm a couple of years ago. When we were working on that beer documentary, we went out to the hop farm and actually got to see him growing hops on, and see how they kind of care for them out there. On the river in Camden.
It's a brewery where you know the brewer, the owner is the brewer.
Yeah.
Like there's a face to it. You know the people. Like it's an actual local brewery.
Yeah. And they put that walking path out there now, so it's kind of a cool place to go hang out, and you got the old mill right there for food. And if you don't like the trucks that they got out there. So
it's a completely different beast too, but Savage's beers are pretty darn good now.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Pilsners, so that's my new kind of favorite thing. And so anywhere I go, I try to make sure that I try the Pilsners. And so, I think Savage is one of my favorite Pilsners in town. I don't remember the name of that one, but they have a regular Pilsner that they
The key to that place is got to go on a weeknight. That's the key.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's a madhouse.
It's insane.
Dude, it like when you have to park at the chicken plant,
you're
like,
don't get me started on that.
I'm not going to. Oh yeah. Well, Right. I guess there's a lot of things in West Columbia.
Yeah,
you
I've
know?
lived in the shadow of it for my entire life, so I've got opinions on it.
And you can't do anything about it apparently. Like it's.
There's always the rumor that 2 years they'll be gone, and
I
3 years
know.
they'll be gone. It's like, well, it's been 40 years and they're still there.
Ever-present chicken
Yeah.
plant. Yeah. It's definitely a wild one. Any crazy stories from the Whig? For nothing you can tell on camera.
Yeah, there's probably not a lot of like super interesting like PG stories, but
Right.
there's always the dumb stories stick in your head.
Yeah.
Just the ones you remember as being particularly funny.
Yeah, it was always a place that we would go after we did something else.
Yeah.
So it was always like that last stop before you go home. And I remember one time, I think when Stephanie first started, this would have been probably 2022. We were at a shoot at the Horseshoe, and we got done with the shoot, and Zach was like, "Hey, let's go to the Whig." Now these guys are 23 at the time, right? 22, 23. And so they had all just started, so that they didn't know each other very well. They had met in college, but they, Zach called Ryan and Stephanie to come meet us down at the Whig, and my head, I'm 49 years old at the time. My head, I'm like, oh, we're going out for a drink. Their head, they're like, how do we ditch the boss and hang out, But that's where we went, and I felt comfortable enough with the Whig to say, this is my place too, right? And I went down there. And I think we got dinner or whatever it was, and they were all there. They're like, all right, well, thanks for dinner. And I go, oh, okay. It was hard for me to get in my head that like it's time for me to leave, right? And let the 23-year-olds hang out at the bar because I got to.
Near the end, the last year, the crowd had gotten so diverse and so strange.
Yeah.
Even to like us, we were just like, I don't know who these people are.
Yeah, yeah.
Once word came out that there was going to be an eventual closing, it was just like a floodgate of people that had never been there,
so much conversation,
or that hadn't been there in 10 years. And it was just like,
what's that like to be part of the legacy of the Whig? I mean, because it's one of those places. It's like I don't know, like Rockefeller's or like one of those like legendary places that people look back on.
I was talking about Rockefeller's yesterday, but yeah, I mean, there's not. We've been closed for 3 years at the Whig now.
Yeah,
and there's not a week that goes by that somebody doesn't bring it up.
Right,
and it's like, hey, any plans for a Whig too?
For a new
or
Whig?
Do you miss the Whig? It's like, I mean, yeah, sure. On some dusty shelf, there is like a path to get that reopened, but
Well, it's I guess the Moxie's taken over that whole thing.
Yeah.
What's in that basement space now? Do you know?
I think it'll be open soon. Another bar. Owned by those guys.
It was the other strange part about the Whig as just going in there the first time is there's no windows, so you feel like you're out of time.
There never in our existence were there windows, but behind the booths there were actual windows.
Oh, were there?
Walls. And I think maybe when they reopen the space, there might be some sort of indirect sunlight coming through there.
Right. It was just ruined the vibe.
Yeah. I mean, the building was over 100 years old when we were there.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a long history of stuff being there.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm glad they renovated that building because it was it was not great.
It was disappointing, but it was no shock to us when it finally happened.
Right.
I mean, we felt like for a decade we were on borrowed time.
Yeah.
You can't be in a 10-story building and be one of two tenants and be
like,
right. Guys, we got it. It was us in the news station for years, and there was just 9 empty floors.
Yeah, and we did a video for Famously Hot New Year for several years while, I guess once they moved it around the corner instead of putting it right at the end of Main Street. And we would go up to the roof of that building to shoot the fireworks, and they would, get us the key to get it. And that elevator was terrifying.
Oh, absolutely. Many of the beer delivery guys that tried to use it would get stuck in there. I opened it up one day. The delivery guy was stuck in there with the mail lady, and she was terrified. She was like trembling, scared. It's like a closet-size elevator.
It's it's like the wood paneling. So they put it in the 70s. And the big raised buttons, and you get going, and it was
Yeah.
like
The building was awful.
Oh yeah.
I mean, everybody's like, "Oh, the basement space is so cool." It's like there's nothing cool about logistically operating a very busy restaurant
In a basement.
in a 100-year-old basement.
Oh yeah.
It's like the plumbing barely works. Like the electricity is just a guess. It's just like,
Well, that's what we in the marketing business we call that charm.
yeah,
It's charming. Yeah.
charming. The exterior is charming. I mean, you peel the curtain back the tiniest little bit, and you're like, "Oh, my Lord."
Not quite as
yeah.
not quite as charming as it seems
No,
from the
to
outside.
operate at the volume we were at, like in the last couple of years it was open, we had freezers and fridges tucked in every imaginable corner of that building.
Yeah.
Not even our space. Like you just go out into the other area of the basement and there'd just be a row of like freezers. It's like, well, nobody's going to say anything, so we're going to leave them there until they do.
It was like back in the day, Main Street was like the Wild West kind of.
Oh,
It was,
absolutely.
it wasn't the kind of hub of student activity like it is now, where students are going in and out of the hub and all that stuff.
In 2005 when we opened, you could walk out of the Whig and walk all the way to Elmwood and not see a human being. You would see
Right.
plywood on windows.
Yeah.
Like, that was it.
Just different, very different
Yeah.
than it is now.
The entire building that, what is it called? It was Oak Table. Now it's,
the halls.
yeah,
Yeah.
that entire building didn't even exist. It was a parking lot
Right.
that you could just park in for free.
Yeah. Nice.
Imagine
Yeah.
that.
All that free parking, right?
Yeah.
We'll go down to have lunch downtown every once in a while, and it's like we just drive around the block and around the block and around the block, and eventually find a place to like. This is not Columbia. Like,
Yeah, that parking ordinance they just
Oh,
passed
yeah.
is astonishingly bad.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad I'm not downtown anymore.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that makes me not miss it.
Right.
It's like there is a stark difference between operating in West Columbia and Columbia.
always free parking at
yeah,
Weco.
yeah, exactly.
So, do you think politics is in your future?
God, I hope not.
Really?
I have been asked to run for like local office, like city council and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But
Yeah.
I would
It's a starting point.
I would much prefer just to run my business, and
We need common sense councilmen.
that would be great.
That's
That would be
true.
great. And I don't think people realize how few votes it really takes to get one of those seats. Like,
Well, and I think what happens with
1,000.
yeah,
I think what
basketball
happens with-
games have higher scores in these vote counts.
good politicians are usually made by people who just want to run their business, but they're so upset about the government situation that they feel like they got to get in and fix it.
I met a legislator out of Berkeley County last week. He came by to talk because he's here in session. He was like, I retired. He's like, I don't have any reason to do this other than I think it needs to be done. He was
Right.
very straightforward.
That's the best kind, right?
Yeah.
That's
And
the way
he
it
was
works
very
best.
honest, and he told me his opinion of the tort reform and the bill that they've got. Everybody's debating. There's hearings yesterday. There's hearings today about it.
Yeah.
The Justice Act 244. So,
Right. Well, so one last question: Why Columbia? Why do this? Why do this here? What is it that keeps you doing business in Columbia?
I don't know. I love misery, I guess. I don't know.
And it loves company.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up here. I was born West Columbia, grew up, always lived here. For a long time, I was like a very outspoken, like, people would visit the Whig while I was bartending. I'd be like, oh, they'd be moving there. I'm like, oh, it's great. We've got a great zoo. We've got a great art museum.
Yeah.
Like, it's a wonderful, cheap place to live. And the older I get a little more cynical. I was like, well, no, it's not great. Like, I wish it was great, but it's very hostile towards business. Downtown seems to be, city of Columbia is just developing in the weirdest ways.
Mm-hmm.
With this new parking thing, they've essentially made small business a thing that won't exist.
Right.
Off-putting to the people that actually live here.
Sure.
Um,
We have been behind a little bit, though. You know,
Yeah.
in thinking about like, if I get a parking ticket in Charlotte or Asheville, it's going to be $30.
Yeah.
Right. If I get a parking ticket in downtown Columbia, it's $8.
but then there's
Right.
also public parking widely marked everywhere. That's
Right.
fairly cheap.
Right.
And it's like you could leave your car overnight. It's also fairly safe to walk around.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing about Charlotte and Charleston, Savannah especially. I mean, Savannah is one of those where everything is shoved down in that one little area, you know, and they have to maximize parking, you know,
Yeah.
to be able to.
Savannah's
make it work.
interesting. People should look at it. I mean, they have no rules like we have, and it seems to operate just fine.
Yeah.
And it thrives. Like,
Yeah. And it's a wonderful place to visit.
I love it. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, we go there once a year.
I love the cool parts. I love the touristy parts.
I know. I love the touristy parts too. It's so weird. I don't normally love the touristy parts.
If you can walk down River Street and just like look at all that stuff and be like, oh, this is not fun. You're in the wrong state. Like,
it's corny, right? It's like, but they got those stupid cobblestone streets down there that are impossible to drive on, but I love it. And I like that stairwell going from East Bay Street down to River Street is like treacherous. And it was built at a time where there was no regulation on stairwells. You don't have to make the stairs any certain length or height. It might be this tall or that tall. And
building code does not exist in Savannah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, back in the 18th century, they were like, I don't know, can we build stairs? And somebody goes, maybe. I don't know. Let's try it. And then they built the stairs and they're like, oh, there you go. These will last for 200 years. And that's what happened. Yeah. They're still there. The first try is still there, and that's what happens.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I do love Columbia. I bought a house here 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I opened a business not with the intent of leaving 5 years later, but
right.
It needs a little bit of course correction.
It's that relative you wish would do things differently, but you still love them.
And I mean, also I'm in West Columbia now, which is people don't realize is an entire different county and municipality than City of Columbia. So I'm still optimistic that things will develop a little better there.
I think they did have a different approach to business too, and
they do. They have a direct. There's actual communication, and you can pick up the phone and call somebody and not get treated weird.
Yeah, and I feel like Tim Miles is a guy you could have a drink with. You know?
I see him walking his poodle every morning in front of the shop.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting environment. Well, Phil, thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate you coming on. Phil, if I'm not mistaken, you did arts and draughts at the museum.
Still do.
Right?
Yeah.
And so Philip invited me to come show one of my music videos at Arts and Draughts, probably 2009 or 10.
Yeah, probably around
it was a long time ago. But that's the only interaction we've ever really had. And I've obviously known of the Whig forever and, all this stuff. So it's very cool to be able to sit down and talk. So
all we did with that program was we switched the Whig name to the Weco name, and still going.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's a great event. It's still at the Museum of Art. Yeah. So it was a lot of fun to do that. I got to show one of the music videos and then talk about it and do Q&A. It was really fun.
Well, check it out.
Yeah. So we always end up with 5 questions.
Nice.
So I've already asked you what your favorite brewery was, but we won't count that. Let's start with what would be your last meal on death row?
Ooh, no meal.
No meal?
No meal.
No?
No, that's like giving in. That's like providing somebody a satisfaction.
Nice.
It's like,
I like that answer.
Yeah.
That's good.
I'm not trying to make anybody feel better by giving me a treat before I'm euthanized.
Last beer? Yeah,
I'll take a hot cup of coffee. It would be great.
Okay, all right.
Get me primed and ready for
get
whatever.
You through the night. Just get you kind of amped up. Yeah, okay. I like it.
Clear-eyed, walk in clear-eyed, ready to go.
That's a good answer. I like that. Favorite movie?
Oh, man, favorite movie. A big sci-fi guy.
Okay.
So, all this Star Trek, Star Wars, all that stuff. There's a weird movie called My Blue Heaven. You ever seen that?
Steve Martin.
A lot of people don't know that one. That's one I just watched over and over and over again.
Nice.
Over like growing up. Just kind of like a comforting film.
Yeah, that's Steve Martin in that weird time where because he did L.A. Story around that time and all that stuff. So that's a weird movie.
It is. Rick Moranis is a witness protection guy. And, Steve Martin's a mob guy, which is silly.
Which is it's a strange role for him. Yeah. Like playing a mobster.
Yeah.
Cool. Favorite band.
Ooh, man. If I had to listen to one band, I mean, I'm a Southern guy, like Creedence.
Oh, nice.
Something like that.
Okay, very cool.
But I mean, growing up working in record stores, I like all kinds of music.
Nice. Yeah. My daughter the other day asked me. My daughter's 15. She asked me. She's like, "Dad, have you heard of Leonard Skinner?"
Oh yeah.
I said, "Yeah." She said, "I have this song called Tuesday's Gone on my playlist." She said, "I really like it." She said, "Do you think I'd like the rest of the songs?" I was like, "Well."
They're not all quite that sad.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's a couple that are probably like that. It might be a little challenging for you, but I would say maybe Sweet Home Alabama. We skip that one for now. And we can figure that out. But that's cool. I tried to explain to her that it was. She said, "Is that country music?" I was like, "No, that's not really." country music. It's hard to
Yeah.
explain the difference.
It's been adopted by a lot of groups.
Yeah, that's
Some-
right.
Some bad.
So what's your favorite season?
Oh, I'm a summer guy.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm one of the few people that if it's 100 degrees, I love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. But
South
born and
Carolina-
raised here.
Yeah.
Okay.
That means all my hobbies involve warm, sunny weather.
Right.
I absolutely cannot stand the winter.
Oh, dude, a day like this where it's 38 degrees
Yeah.
and overcast, I'm like, ugh.
I can't take it. I can't handle it.
Yeah. Brian loves the summer too. So, but he was born and raised in Wisconsin, so he likes it not being cold. So, and I don't guess he considers this very cold, right? 38
I
degrees.
didn't have a jacket on today. No.
It's almost a Canadian, really.
Nice.
Wisconsin, you're like right there. And then what? See, that was 4, right?
Yeah.
So what would the last one be? Oh, favorite fictional character.
Fictional character. I'll go with Cisco from Deep Space Nine.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Okay.
Yeah. Of
Very
the
good.
Star Trek captains, that is my favorite.
That's your favorite Star
Yeah.
Trek captain?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. I don't have a favorite Star Trek captain. I guess Picard would be the only one that I...
Yeah, it's like fresh. I've just rewatched like all of the series.
Okay.
So it's like fresh on my brain.
I should probably try one of the Star Trek series. I've never watched any of the series. So
Now's the time you can do them all, and if you get through
Generations or like any of I haven't watched any of them. So,
Enterprise with Scott Bakula,
nope.
quite
Never
good.
never saw any of
If
those.
you're gonna go in chronological,
I saw the original
timeline
series
order,
like in
that's the one you start
syndication,
with.
but
so that's the second in the timeline. That would be the second one,
I gotcha.
which is it's a painful watch at times. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's 1960s, but
What's the one that Picard is on?
Next Generation.
Next Generation. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
That's the one most people know, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Yeah. And every one of those became kind of legendary in their own way.
Yeah.
For the captains that they
And
brought in.
spawned movies after movies.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, I maybe I'm mature enough to get it now. Like I didn't get it when I was younger, but like
Yeah,
maybe I
there's
can.
definitely cheesy parts. I'm rewatching Voyager right now, so it's,
okay.
it's a real trudge to get through some of that material.
Right.
You're just like shaking your head like this is the dumbest thing. But
Right. Well, awesome. Well, Phil, thanks so much for doing this, man. I appreciate it, and hopefully, we can kind of get some interest on this and get the conversation going on it. On the insurance thing.
Yeah, hopefully, it's a ticking time bomb, so hopefully somebody gets it.